Okay, here we go. Let's do this.
Yes, sir.
Did y'all hear that? That's a radio voice. Do that again.
I had to turn it on.
Yeah. Everybody, I am lucky to have a guy named Drew Myers on the show today. He's drove over from Rainbow, Texas,
Yes, sir.
to be a part of the Cowboy Perspective. And gosh, there's just so many miles of conversation to have. Well, we're just going to have to pick a road and go.
Let's ride.
Who are you? Where did you come from? Like, just a real quick, why does anybody care? Like, where are you from? What do you do?
Well, let me say this before I answer your question is I struggled with that for a long time. Why would anybody care?
Yeah.
That imposter syndrome.
Sure, man. Me too. I was talking to another guest the other day. No, it's actually not a guest. It's a guy I'm trying to get involved in this kind of business network group that he's like, I don't know why you're like, and I'm like, shut up, dude. You're valuable as anybody else. No imposter syndrome allowed. And I can say that because I know what that's like.
Right. Absolutely. Well, to answer your question, I grew up in Duncanville, Texas, South Dallas, went to school in Midwestern State up in Wichita Falls, Texas. And I was a long-haired narcissistic journalism major. I wrote for the school newspaper and I thought I wanted to be, work for Sports Illustrated one day. And after I got out of school, I had the distinction of having 11 jobs in 11 years.
By the way, this is a great segue to you got to listen to or read his book, The Chocolate and Tacos and Chocolate Diet. We'll put a link to that book in the show notes, but it taught me a lot about Drew. It really, all those 11 jobs and the crazy kind of journey you have been on and are on, and this run a mile every day. I don't know. I want to call it a record, but it's just this.
Oh, it's definitely not a record.
But it's a commitment,
Yes,
you know. Before we just get totally off the rails, you were saying 11 jobs in 11 years. Keep going with where you're, like who you are, where you come from.
Sure. Well, my dad told me when I was growing up, if I wasn't happy with what I was doing, go do something else. And I embraced that with both arms. And I was everything from a newspaper guy to a college football coach, started my own business. I have an entrepreneurial spirit about me, but sometimes that didn't pay the bills. So I've worked for ad agencies. I've worked for an oil and gas company doing marketing for them. The last real job that I had, I was selling real estate in Glen Rose, Texas. And they happened to move a radio station there that changed my life. I got the opportunity to be on the morning show there with Mike and Julie Green. 95.3 KOME, where country and rock come together. And that really launched me into podcasting and getting my message out there, which turned up the knob on my speaking, which led to my coaching. And that's where I'm at now, coaching, speaking, hosting workshops and things like that. I love it.
Yeah. Well, that's how I met you. We do this charity called Bacon Bash Texas. As a piece of that, we do an event, kind of a white tablecloth, smaller group, higher price ticket called Ball of the Bash.
Very cool event.
And you came, helped us out, emceed it, did a little bit of motivational presenting, speaking, I guess is the right word.
Drop some inspiration on you guys, yeah?
Yeah, sure. And everybody really enjoyed it. I got to meet you. I bumped into you at a cross-country meet, I mean, so it's funny how time kind of passes. Oh, you lose track of somebody and, I wonder what they're up to. Bam. It's just the perfect time to have you on the podcast, talk about those things. The goal of the podcast, or why I do it, is I want to share stuff with listeners that could be a great perspective for them. That's been really good for me. It's worked out well for me. It's helped me be good, or it's helped me realize I am not good. These different things. I think you can bring a lot of that to the show. Just, and partially because I read the book, I'm like, wow, this is a deep guy. Like, you think about things deeply. You have a genuine giving desire and spirit. So let's try to give it to them. Everybody, if you're listening, I mean, I say this all the time. I understand completely. Your time is the most valuable asset you have. So if you're spending it listening to this, I want to deliver you value. I want you to hear something that makes you think, that might give you a leg up on the competition, another way to think about being a parent, son, father, Christian, any of these things. So, well, by the way, I can't remember. What's your role, or how do you feel about and think about faith?
Oh, I have a strong faith.
There you go.
I was dating a girl when I was in Midwestern that kind of planted the seed. I went to church as a kid. I grew up Episcopalian, but I didn't really have Jesus in my heart. And girl I was dating she planted that seed, and I pushed back and I said, "No, I'm going to heaven. I'm good." She was like, "No, have you been saved? Have you accepted Jesus in your heart?" And probably a couple years later, I was just at a church service in Wichita Falls, Texas, and the preacher was up on stage and he said, to accept Jesus into your heart, know that God sent his son down to die on the cross for your sins. You don't have to do anything special. You don't have to stand up. You don't have to yell at the top of your lungs. You don't have to wave your arms. You don't have to come up here and get baptized. I think it was a baptism ceremony. He goes, you can do it right there in your seat. And I did right there. Then it changed my life. Now, the relationship was formed at that point. I've been in and out of fellowship for sure.
Yeah.
Right now, I feel like I'm in a good place. He's working within me, and
yeah,
I feel like I'm in a really strong place.
I feel the very same way. It's a journey. It's not like a ticket that you just get on the bus and ride.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a thing. You're kind of need to be active in it. But as a father, as a husband, my wife and I have a great partnership in this regard. We both really have a good relationship, I think, with God, or at least thus far. There's always more stuff revealed. But so the crazy thing happened with this football player that died on the field the other day. Have you heard anything about that?
Well, he's still alive.
Well,
he did die twice, though.
There we go. Mm-hmm. And that's been a weird thing for me to figure out. Like, what is death? Like, is it just a heart stopping, or, like, how do you die and then come back? Anyways, we're working out the other morning. We get on this conversation. My middle daughter goes to work out with me. She has recently. And it's kind of a crazy conversation, death being brought up a lot. So we're driving home afterwards, and I thought, man, I'm just going to check with her and see, what she's thinking about all that, because that could set off some real worries. And she just said, well, they just went to heaven. I mean, what's the big deal?
Pretty
and I was like, that's pretty good. Change of address, darling. That's what it is. It's a lot more complicated, but I was glad she has that feeling and that understanding. So death isn't such a scary thing. And I kind of, as part of the podcast, I want to try to help people understand death doesn't have to be scary. I'm sure it's going to happen to me. It could happen now. Like, you just don't know. It might happen when I walk out the door next. I'm sure the football player had no clue this was fixing to unfold in his life. None of us do. You think about parents that have lost kids, and you don't plan for these things. You don't think it'll ever happen to you. So having this relationship with God, understanding these things, really helps me in life. So I hope if you're listening, Drew and I mentioning this stuff gets you off the couch, potentially, metaphorically, and off to thinking about, okay, cool, what is this? Maybe let me explore it a little bit, see if it works for me. I'm pretty sure it will if you put your heart and try.
Sure, absolutely.
All right. What about, let's just touch on your story a little bit, like this thing that maybe it's an event, maybe it's a time in your life like just made you say, you know what? I have something to share, and I want to share it, and I want to help people. How did that all come about?
When I finished the manuscript for the tacos and chocolate diet, my wife joked around and was telling people it took me 17 years to write it. She goes, you were writing that when we were dating. And she's not 100% wrong.
Right, sure.
I had started it a couple times, different looks and feels, but it wasn't until I went through something in 2019 and came out of that thing. I kind of hit bottom, was in the darkness, and came out of it, that I felt like this story needs to be shared. People can find some value in it and have a takeaway from it. And so that's what gave me permission to to write the book and to start sharing my story. Now, when I speak to people all the time, I remind them that their masterpiece is one of a kind, precious, and their story celebrates that rarity and that beauty. We need to be telling our story.
Yeah, 100%. I say this. You could you're outside of this circle, but just for the sake of conversation, you could draw a 20-mile circle around this spot right here and spend the rest of your life having fun, interesting conversations.
Without a doubt.
With those people in that circle. And maybe nobody else even knows who they are. But if you'll dig a little bit, just talk to people, ask them, well, what do you do? What are you up to? Like, what do you think about things? And the other truth is they won't all align with my thoughts exactly.
No.
But they're still beautiful, awesome, fun, valuable thoughts and perspectives that I can use, and I might not even know yet how I would use them.
Sure. I say this all the time, Neil, that when you know someone's story, there is a level of empathy, there's a level of understanding, there's a level of love almost. You cannot hate anyone when you know their story. And I'm not saying you have to agree with everything, all their opinions, all their beliefs. You don't have to. But it cuts through any level of hate whatsoever. And that's what I love about story. Anybody, any walk of life from anywhere in the world, if you know their story, a level of understanding, a level of empathy, and a level of love.
Yeah. I can't even think of the guy's name, but there's a guy that does this YouTube channel called the Soft White Underbelly. He's like a photographer, a documentary kind of guy. Well, he goes around, just telling some of the most heart-wrenching stories, from maybe a schizophrenic on Skid Row in LA to a prostitute, and what that life is like, to West Virginian, Appalachian people who are like, you just think, man, I ain't got it that bad. Right. If you ever want to let yourself get into that mindset of woe is me, I encourage you to find those things that can pluck you out of that quickly.
Sure.
And you have to build that skill set. My dad helped me a lot with that. I mean, any junior high kid, anybody that's been a junior high kid understands when that girl don't like you back, or when the coach didn't play you that game, when mom and dad didn't give you what you wanted, you can fall into this tape recorder in your head of, nobody loves me. My life is not very good. Somebody, work with your kids, work with anybody you can mentor and be a part of their life and help them understand. Yes, I can empathize with that. I've been there, but you don't have to stay there.
Sure.
There's a whole lot of other people that have it worse than you want to trade spots with you.
But in the same breath, let me say this. I think we live in a society where we need to stop minimizing our own issues, because we all have our things, right? They may not be schizophrenic on Skid Row. They may not be prostitution, but we have our things.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times when we start comparing ourselves, or we're like, oh, it's not as bad as so-and-so, or, we're playing the comparison game. But if we don't at least recognize that, we can't, quote unquote, fix those problems, even if it's just a little tweak. Mm-hmm. So instead of deflecting, just addressing it and then moving on. But you're right. There are levels.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point. And that's why it's not just easy, right? Because you need to tell me, hey, Neil, let's make sure people don't think you can just deflect it. You got to own it. Work through it. And we all have issues. Here's one of mine. Let's talk about it, because I texted it to you. I don't want to forget about this. Right, and I'm curious what you would say, how you would help me with this.
I'm going to put on my coaching hat.
Yeah, coach me. And I don't know if anybody else feels this way. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. If it is you, here's your opportunity to hear what Drew thinks about it. And I want to know. Sometimes I'm great about it. Sometimes I'm not. But I have this part of me that kind of secretly desires in a big way, when I walk in a room, for people to look and see me and start whispering, hey, there's Neil Dudley. Did you see that? Did you know what all he's done? Why? It doesn't actually ultimately, inevitably matter one hill of a beans, but that's something I want. What's up with that?
Okay. So I'm going to come back with you with 2 questions. Has it happened before where it played out like that?
How would I know? I don't know.
You've never heard the whispers?
No.
Okay. Well, spoiler alert, it has happened before. Okay. You may not be aware of it, but it has happened before. I know you well enough that it has happened. Have you walked into a room where you know it's not happening?
Yes.
How does that make you feel? This isn't therapy, by the way. This is coaching. How does it make you feel?
Inconsequential. Insignificant.
Does it make you feel less about yourself?
Not really.
You're a confident guy. It shouldn't impact you in that regard.
I don't think so. I mean, my example would be big food shows, networking events. Now, I do wear a hat, so that is almost always going to catch some attention. So I could probably be lying originally than saying, have I ever walked in a room and feel like I was totally unnoticed? That might not be true because the hat's going to get somebody to turn and look and either wonder what the heck or, So maybe that's not true. But you can walk into these rooms and just your job is to go meet everybody so you have a chance to build your network. And sometimes you walk into there and nobody cares. Like, well, there's a guy with a hat. Don't know anything about him. I'm more interested in talking to these people I already do business with. I already know I'm comfortable with. I don't know. Did I ever get around to answering your question?
Well, kind of. Well, let's change your perspective just a little bit. Okay. Instead of walking into a room and where everybody is whispering, hey, there's Neil. Hey,
yeah, right.
You know what Neil does? What if it was just one person? One person recognized you, whether they said something to you or didn't say something to you, or they recognized you. They maybe have seen your stuff on YouTube, have listened to the podcast, met you in an industry event or whatever. And maybe that one person comes up and I just wanted to say hello. You don't know me, but I just wanted to say hello. And focusing on that instead of being famous, if you will.
Yeah.
And I think if we look at it like that, that's a lot more impactful for me, at least. And I fall into that as well. You want people to know who you are. You don't want to be a wallflower.
Yeah.
You don't want to be irrelevant. That's my biggest fear. Neil, you read my book.
Yeah,
it's to be irrelevant.
Right. Sure.
But if we change our perspective and realize that instead of the masses knowing who we are, being, I don't know, pick a famous person, Joe Rogan, Justin Bieber, Jerry Jones, whoever you pick, you're just impacting small little pockets in a more profound way.
Absolutely. And I mean, I understand this thing, but I think it's valuable. I want to share some of my flaws, vulnerabilities, things that I deal with and work through. I mean, because sometimes you might be a podcaster and you're talking to a lot of kind of successful people and you just start coming across like, man, this guy's got it all together. I don't. I really would argue really nobody does. I try really hard to stay on top of my thought processes in a way that says, hey, cool, I'm moving forward. I'm imperfect, but I'm still pretty dang good. Still doing life in a way that I really enjoy. So I'm good.
You need to remind yourself on a regular basis that you're good. You're good. Neil's good
right.
is 98% better than a lot of people's great.
Yeah, sure. And then there's that comparison thing.
Oh, yeah.
Again, creeping back in. You want to be like, like, my podcast doesn't get 1 million listens like Joe Rogan, so I must suck. No, I'm doing great things. You got to take that perspective. Everybody, listen to what Drew said. I mean, I want a huge yeehaw for that. Did you affect one person? And that's worth it. Who cares about the million? When you take that approach, all of a sudden you're getting a lot of good feelings about your thing, whatever it is. Doesn't have to be a podcast. It might be coaching. It might be mentoring at a nursing home. I don't know. But like, just take the one person and really appreciate that. And the rest is gravy.
Because I promise you, there is a ripple effect. If that one person represents a stone and you throw that stone in the water, there are ripple effects.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll share this with you. When I give my book to someone or somebody buys my book or lets me know they're reading my book, I want them to have one takeaway. They don't need to love the book cover to cover. One takeaway. That's it. When I'm speaking to a group of people, I don't need a standing ovation anymore. I want to impact one person in the room because I know without a doubt in my mind, there are ripple effects from those things.
You bet. And the chances of there being two people very similar in the room
Absolutely.
are high.
Absolutely.
So accidentally just shooting for one, you got two, It's like when you're going for the moon, you might not get the moon, but you're going to get a star or something.
That's right.
It's another way to kind of think about it.
Well, have you heard, I'm sure, the sand dollar story where the kid's at the beach and he's picking up it's a starfish. And he's picking up the starfish and he's throwing them in the ocean. There's starfish everywhere. There's thousands of them. This guy walks up and he's like, "What are you doing?" It's like, "I'm saving these starfish." And he goes, the guy looks around. I mean, there's thousands. He goes, "You can't save all these starfish." And he goes, "Nope." He looks at the one in his hand and he goes, "But I can save this one."
Yeah.
Throw it in there.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's right.
Let me ask you something. Do you do affirmations?
Off and on. I mean, I'm familiar with them. I've had them in my car, and pull one out of the door of the car or something and sit there and think on it and try to really use it. But no, I wouldn't say it's a thing I consistently.
So when I hit bottom in 2019 and I was in that dark, dark place, it was prayer and affirmations that pulled me out of it.
Yeah.
Just reminding myself that I am making a difference, that I am an inspiration, that God does love me, that I am extra, and that's not a bad thing. Because what happens in this world is we tell ourselves a bunch of BS lies. I suck, I'm not good enough, blah, 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 blah. And the bad thing is we start to believe those things.
Sure.
So we have to counter those with the positive things, the truths, the affirmations. And so, again, prayer and reminding myself of those truths is what pulled me out of the darkness. And I've got them written in my journal and I'd go through them every single day.
Yeah.
Because the cool thing about that is when you remind yourself that you're a badass, you start to believe that.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's illustrating. I mean, we're two guys telling you. The tape recorder you play to yourself about yourself is very, very important. And it's hard to rewrite. I mean, once it's playing, you can't just say, "I wish that wasn't it. I wish it to be another thing." You have to, like Drew said, pull yourself out of the darkness with consistent repetition, diligent expectation of a change. So it ain't easy. I tell people, do hard things. We all do hard things. You do hard things. I do hard things. One of the hard things I do is make myself go work out. I never wake up. Never's the wrong word. Very rarely do I wake up saying, "Yay, I'm about to go sweat and feel pain." But when I'm done, I'm pretty confident I did a little more than most people. So I'm proud of myself for that.
Sure.
You run a mile every day. Talk about that a little bit. Why? How do you accomplish it? What's the point?
Well, I've been a runner since I was dating my wife. I used to be a drinker and a smoker, and I ran a little bit, but I really turned up the knob on running. I'd run some races and things like that. But it was after my son was born. I was kind of in a rut. I wasn't running. I was making up excuses. And I went to an event, an American Cancer Society event. You had to write a postcard to yourself. So I wrote myself a postcard and I said, "You need to be a better influence for your son. Get your butt off the couch and go run." And they mailed it to you. I don't remember, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks later.
Yeah.
So it shows up in the mail. You forgot you wrote it. I was like, oh, here we go. So a friend of a friend had done a running streak. So I was introduced to the concept of streak running. 1 mile every single day, no excuses. I said, "I'm going to try this." Ran for 2 days, went out it both days. 1 mile, came back. I felt good. And we were living in Fort Worth and it iced and snowed on that third day. I said, I can't go out there and run.
Right.
And then I said, time out. That's just another excuse. So at that point, I said, no more excuses. It doesn't matter how cold it is, doesn't matter how hot it is, doesn't matter how late it is, how early I have to run, doesn't matter how drunk I am, whatever. I am running. And I did for 11 and a half years. 4,150 days. I ran every single day, at least 1 mile. And the only thing that stopped my streak, Neil, I tore my calf.
Right. I mean, everybody think about that. That is a lot of days. And you got the flu on some of those days. Your kids got you chasing them around, your wife. I mean, that is not that easy. There is absolutely a lot of days in there where it could be pretty easy to say, nah, a mile ain't that important to me.
But I just got to the point of enough. I said, I'm tired of making excuses. So I'm just going to remove every single one of them. Probably the closest I ever came to that initial streak. And I've started a new streak, by the way.
Yeah.
It's probably 4 or 5 months old. So once my calf got healed, I started again. But the closest I came to missing it, I was sick. They didn't know what was wrong with me. I went to the emergency room. And my buddy took me to the emergency room. And I said, I'm going to run out half a mile and run back half a mile. And then I'm walking in that emergency room. And that's what I did.
Wow.
Because I had to get it in. And it was slow and it was ugly.
Yeah.
I don't think I stopped and threw up, but I wanted to.
Yeah.
I don't even know to this day what was wrong with me, but I knew I had to go to the emergency room, but I had to get that mile in.
Yeah. What constitutes running?
Well, it's funny, when I tore my calf, that's what a physical therapist said. I said, can I run? And he goes, what does running look like to you?
Right.
So I went out and tried to run on a torn calf. And I said, that's not running. That's a walk and a drag is what that is. I even tried to put my son's Healy on my left heel and try to drag it along. No, that's not running. It's not fast. I'm not trying to set any world speed records with my running streak. It's just going out there and getting it done and moving.
Yeah. Do you very often go more than a mile?
Oh, absolutely. Especially if I'm training for something. If I'm training for a half marathon, that's all I'm doing these days. No more marathons, just halves. Like I'm training for one. In March, I want to go up and it's a vacation race or a destination race at Zion, half marathon. So yeah, I'm turning up the miles right now. I'll go 3 today.
Yeah. But at least a mile.
At least 1 mile. And there have been days where it wasn't a step further.
Sure.
Because it is cold or it is late or I am sick or whatever.
You bet. Tell us what that was like to break it. Like, once you've I feel like once you get into that mental space of come hell or high water, I'm doing this. And then a thing happens to break that you just absolutely can't overcome. Did that bother you, or was it just like, nah, I mean, I can't run. What's okay. Like life goes on.
Oh no, man, it was tough. Let me tell you what happened. I was at the house wearing my boots, jeans, and t-shirt, my uniform, if you will.
Yeah.
It was 9:30 at night and I'd already run that particular day. So my mile had been done. I got up that morning and got it done. And we have some rental properties on our property. And some people had shown up to rent one of our houses.
Yeah.
And they pulled up and it was dark outside and I could tell they didn't know where they were going. So I walk outside, say, hey, can I help you guys? And they're like, yeah, we've rented the retreat center. And I was like, oh, it's right down there. And I look over to the right and the house is pitch black dark. I was like, no, dang it. We need to turn some lights on for you guys. Let me run down there real quick and turn some lights on. Boots, jeans, t-shirt. I take 4 steps and it was like somebody hit me from 200 yards with a sniper rifle. Right in the calf. Boom.
Wow.
So weird, right? But I was cold. I hadn't warmed up. I was wearing boots. I'm running on Caliche Road. So it
wasn't a hole or something.
No, it wasn't a hole.
Like,
it wasn't like I was out for this long run and no boots.
I mean, that's how life does it.
I know, right? So I drug my leg all the way down. It's about 200 yards to the big house and turned the lights on for the people. And I called my wife and I said, you got to come get me. She's like, where are you? You were just watching TV in the living room. And I said, well, I had to go turn some lights on at the big house and I'm hurt. She drove down there.
Yeah.
I mean, it took her longer to walk out to the car than it took to pick me up. Came back and I said, I'm hurt bad. And I started to make phone calls. I called my mom, who's a former nurse. I called my sister, who is a pediatrician. The next morning, I got on phones with any physical therapist that I knew. what can I do? And as the day went on, it became more obvious that I wasn't going to get that mile in. Went to a softball tournament outside of Waco for my daughter, limped around on the field because I was coaching her team.
Yeah.
I was like, but I get home that night. I was like, I'm going to try one more time. I've run for 4,150 straight days. I can try one more time. I put my shoes on. This is 1:00 in the morning. And I go out to our county road and I took 3 steps and I said, nope, I'm done.
Yeah.
But right then and there, Neil, I decided that my running streak did not define who I am. But me getting healthy, me getting completely well, and starting my streak again will define me. And that's what I decided to do.
Yeah. That's such a valuable perspective because we all have that thing we're very proud of, or where you kind of use. I would almost say the running streak could be considered a bit of a crutch in your life because it was this thing that you could lean on as like,
absolutely. Especially people would bring it up all the time. People would talk about it. I remember sitting down with Walt and Tina Wilkins at one of my live audience shows, and they wanted to talk about my running streak,
Right. Yep. So we all have them. I have it. Maybe like I get really, I don't know. I never do anything real long streak stuff. Like I can't keep a real healthy diet going for the rest of my life. It's like, I don't know why I haven't matured to that point or figured it out, but I can eat really healthy for a little bit. I did this thing called 75 hard. So I spent 75 days.
Oh yeah, that's real, man.
2 workouts a day,
Did you complete it?
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's
I
awesome.
actually completed extra days because I failed a progress picture one day. So I swore I was starting over. So I did cheat a little bit in this way. Instead of starting over, I just did an extra day for that day I missed. And that's
the only thing you missed was the progress picture?
Yeah, the progress picture. I think I messed up like 2 times. Something else. One, maybe I didn't read the 10 pages one day or something. Anyways, I still failed that day. I didn't, and I wanted to hold myself accountable in a way that was like, oh, start all over. Now another 75. And then I got to the 75 day and I was like, I'm damn proud of what I did here. I've accomplished what I want from this thing. I'm not going to be a little weak-hearted nobody and not at least make up those 2 days. But the fact that I'm here, I'm proud of that. And I'm not going to start all over. Plus, it's a sacrifice from my family, from my wife, from my kids, the whole bunch sacrifice so I could accomplish that thing.
Sure. But 2 things from that story that you just said. You showed yourself grace. And I think a lot of people struggle with that these days. Mm-hmm. We beat ourselves up. If you missed your progress picture, you missed reading your 10 pages or whatever, you just beat the hell out of yourself. You're like, I'm a loser. I failed at something else. Right. Why even start anything? Blah, 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 the lies again in your ear, right? But the second thing is, for those 75 days, you made yourself a priority. And that makes you, in my opinion, a better dad, a better podcast host, a better, community leader, whatever it is you do. You've got to take care of yourself. Make the important things important, starting with you. And that's what you were doing.
Oh, yeah. And I do that. I wasn't always good at that, but I've gotten pretty good at that because I saw the value. I found out, wow, when I'm really happy with me, I'm a lot better to everybody else. You're a better daddy and
better husband, aren't you?
You bet. I'm better at business. I'm better at everything. Coaching the little league team, all that stuff. Now, that doesn't mean like it's easy every day and it's just this given now that I'm perfect. No. But I do, like when I'm healthy, when I'm in shape, I'm better at everything.
Self-care, self-love, and self-protection are real.
Yeah. Well, it was the thing we're talking about in Sunday school, emotional needs. Mm-hmm. Love, acceptance, worth, security. If you feel good in every one of those, you got it. And if you can learn you're good in every one of those, thanks to Jesus, then when people are sliding you, when you're having a bad day, and you practice and learn to say, Jesus has got me. I'm good. I have all those things that I need right there. Maybe mom and dad aren't giving it to me the way I want it. That's okay. I got it where I know I'm there. Then that just makes all this living thing we do roll a little bit smoother.
I agree. So my word for the year is abundance.
My word is influence.
Okay, I like it.
Yeah.
Now, when I picked my word of abundance, I had to be careful. And it's not about money and stuff. And I pulled some scripture on this. Jude 2, God wants to bless us abundantly, specifically for mercy, peace, and love, kind of what you were talking about. So I love that. And people forget that God wants us to bless us abundantly. So I really want to focus on that in 2023.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that you said that.
Well, it's where I'm at right now today. You know, I'm doing this thing, or I'm trying to go through this program called M46 Dads, where it's a coach and a pastor that have put together a little program that has me fighting for the hearts of my children. So I'm fighting to make them and help them love me and help them understand life.
What does M46 mean?
Malachi 4:6.
Okay.
It's the last verse in the Old Testament. And it reads, fight for the hearts of your children. I can't remember, I can't quote the verse, but that's what M46 stands for. The guy is Kenny Dallas and Tim Sexton. They're really cool. So if you want to look that up, we'll put a link to it. I'd advise it. It's been valuable to me.
Like, do you read it?
It's kind of like a group of men come together, go through this course. You watch a little video on YouTube of them talking about the tool, the concept, like the covenant and what the cross really means. And now then you talk to your kids. One of the things I really enjoyed, they'll challenge you. Now go tell your kids, go do this thing with your kids or talk about this topic.
Action items, absolutely.
Yeah. One of them was go home, ask your kids what they could do to make you love them more or make you love them less. What could you do to make me love you more, make me love you less? See what they say. Because the answer is nothing.
Not a dang thing.
Yeah, because that's how God loves us. There's nothing we can do or not do to make him love us more. It's fully unconditional, which my dad taught me this in a way too. Anyways, that's been a lot of fun studying that.
Now, are you doing that locally with a group of guys?
Yeah, our church.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's important.
And it's not, okay, and this is another kind of grace thing. I've not done that very well. Like I missed church probably four Sundays in a row, so I've missed that camaraderie, that kind of iron sharpening iron, that kind of accountability group. And then I'm kind of like, well, why even do it? You know, I mean, now I'm way behind. No, just jump back in. Get back in the game.
That's right.
Coach is putting you back in. Go run the place you know how to run.
It's funny. Along those lines, different but the same. Somebody that's on a diet, you know, and they're like, I'm going to eat healthy. And they have a couple donuts in the morning.
Yeah, sure.
Instead of, okay, showing yourself some grace, I ate a couple donuts. I'm going to start eating better at lunch.
Yeah.
And I'm going to, continuing today. This is society's mindset, Neil. See if you agree with me. Well, I had the 2 donuts at lunch, so I'm going to eat this whole large pizza. Or I had 2 donuts for breakfast. I'm going to eat this whole large pizza for lunch. I'm going to have a milkshake for a snack, and then for dinner tonight, I'm going to just blow it out. I'll start again tomorrow, which is just start. Right. Hey, I messed up. I had a couple donuts. They get back on track. Yeah. Hey, I missed a couple of this, M46 thing, 4 weeks. Dang. Just okay. See you guys Sunday. Let's go.
I think that's how sports helped me in life. I mean, I played sports. I loved sports. I dreamed of being the next Troy Aikman. You know, it's like, I don't know, man. So many rabbits start running across my eyes of things to chase. Like, why would I want to be Troy Aikman? But sports taught me sometimes you're off the field, sometimes you're on the field. Go play. If you're in the game, play. Don't stand and hope somebody else is going to play. You're out there. Go. So just get back in the game when you miss something or you're out of the game for a little bit. It's okay. Coach put you back in. Go.
You talk about sports. One of the coolest things I'm doing right now is I'm doing intentionality coaching, but I'm working with a lot of athletes. And the process or the approach that I'm pushing is called neutral thinking. So I got my hand up here. Neutral thinking. Not too high, not too low. Okay. It's okay to get excited about something, make a big play, but you got to get back to neutral.
Yeah.
It's okay to get down. Dang it. Should have made that tackle. But you got to let it go because there's about to be another snap. And what I love about it is that it trickles over into life. You know, in sports, there's going to be another tee shot. There's going to be another pitch. There's going to be another snap, whatever sport it is you're playing. I'm working with a junior Olympian in judo. There's going to be another fight. So we got to get to neutral. We lost that last fight, but we got another fight coming, so we got to get to neutral. Anyway, well, it trickles over to life.
Yeah.
Right? There's going to be another business decision. There's going to be another parental moment where we have to make a decision. If we're still beating ourselves up because we blew up at our kids and yelled and screamed or whatever, we got to get back to neutral. So I really love that concept. It comes from a mental coach who passed away from cancer in 2021, but his name is Trevor Moab. He worked with Alabama football, Georgia football, Michigan State football. He was Russell Wilson's mental coach, and he pushed that neutral thinking. I've really gravitated to it. And the kids that I'm working with, these athletes that I'm working with, really gravitate towards it as well.
Yeah. Sounds like very logical, awesome. If you look at high performers, I think you see that a lot. I mean, Bill Belichick's the first one that comes to my mind. Like, he's winning Super Bowls, and it doesn't seem like, it seems like he likes that process, that journey, that middle of the road happiness and sadness.
He's almost a robot, though.
Yeah, that's true.
You want a little bit of emotion.
Yeah, and maybe I'm missing it, right? I mean, I don't know Bill. He could be the most excitable guy there is. It's like you only see a glimpse of him on the sideline, in press conferences, these places. That's not even close to knowing somebody.
Sure. But, I used to work at TCU. That was one of my 11 jobs in 11 years. I was on the football staff at TCU. So it's a really exciting year for me with the Frogs playing in the national championship game. But that is the most neutral team I've ever watched play. They're never out of it.
Right now?
Right now.
Yeah.
They're never out of it. They can be down 2 touchdowns and they're not beating themselves up. Oh, we suck at football. Let's play the next game. Nope. We'll just focus on the next play.
Right.
And then that's really carried over. And the crazy thing about it, Neil, and I've never met the young man, Max Duggan, the quarterback at TCU. I was back there a long time ago. I was there during Andy Dalton's tenure.
Yeah.
And Max Duggan, post game of the semifinals of the college football playoffs, they just beat Michigan. They asked him a question, and he used the word neutral.
Yeah.
And I was like, heck yes,
Yeah.
Let's go. And that summed him up. That is a neutral dude.
Yeah.
Just going to focus on the next snap. I may have thrown 2 interceptions in a row, but all I'm going to focus on is the next snap.
Sure. I mean, that's so valuable in business and everything.
Absolutely.
I think I do that, I will catch myself worrying about it a little bit, and then I start saying, I am not in charge of this world. I can only do the best I can do today. And when it seems like it all unraveled and fell apart, I've lived this. 5 years later, I look back and I say, holy moly, wasn't that so lucky that all fell apart and unraveled? Like, sometimes you just got to think about future you. I interviewed a guy named Steve Barton. When you're listening to this, I don't know, you may have listened to the Steve Barton episode or you may not have. You should go back and listen to that because he talks about that a little bit.
Put the link in the show notes.
Yeah, we'll put the link back to that show in the show notes. And he just talks about when he's thinking about mentoring his employees, people he works with, anybody, he asks them, well, are we making a decision for today, Neil, or future Neil? Because we need to be trying to make some decisions for future Neil. Like, some of them need to be made for today, Neil, but are we thinking about future Neil? I thought that was super valuable. I mean, valuable enough I'm bringing up in this conversation. So high five, Stephen. You really helped me with that one. All this coaching and stuff, I have this problem too. Here's another one on me. I think if you're coaching me, you should have dreamed up all the concepts you're teaching me. Is that fair? Is that even possible?
Like they all should be my ideas?
Yeah.
Like I can't borrow any from Trevor Moab?
Right. I think ultimately what I have learned is I'm not inventing much of anything. I'm taking what I know, putting it together in my way and using it. Do you know anybody? Is there anybody that did Trevor Moab invent that? Yeah. Right. So that's another thing I want everybody to hear. Nobody is inventing it all from scratch. You know what you know. It's valuable. Use it.
Give attribution where attribution is due, right? I always reference Trevor Moab because he had a profound impact on my life. But I've taken what he was teaching, coaching, preaching, and put my own little spin on it. So I think that's what life is.
Yeah.
We surround ourselves with smart and, capable people. We learn from those people. We take the information that they provide us, whether it's somebody we know or somebody we read or watch, and then we make it our own. Yes, we are not reinventing the wheel. The wheel has been invented.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know why I get hung up on that a little bit sometimes, like even in my own, what I'm trying to accomplish here.
Well, hopefully when you read the Tacos and Chocolate Diet, I reference a bunch of books. I pull quotes from all over the place. I reference the Bible, but I think Trevor Moab in the book. I reference John Maxwell in the book. I reference the guy that wrote the 4-Hour Work Week, John Krakauer, a bunch of these. So hopefully you read something and you're like, I need to read that book as well.
Sure.
I mean, again, that's that ripple effect.
Yeah.
Maybe Into the Wild by John Krakauer was never on your radar, but you're like, oh, I think I'll read that book. And then that leads you to another book. So I think that's what life is.
Sure. Well, and for me, okay, so I didn't really read. I didn't understand the value of it. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't find utility in it till mid-30s, late 30s, early 40s. I mean, recently, I skipped a lot of years of what I could have been adding value to my own experience, my own perspective. Anyways, okay, whatever. I'm in the game now. I'm playing it. Tim Ferriss is one I like. I pay attention to. I listen to it. And then I kind of moved on from that. I'm like, okay, cool. I get all that. Now I'm interested in Drew Myers. It's just like those interests, those people that are pouring into you will change over time. And that's kind of fun and cool. It's interesting to me. I like that truth that you don't have to just get stuck on a Tony Robbins train.
Exactly. Who's the guy, the get out of debt guy? What's that?
Oh, yeah.
Come on. We know who it is.
Sure.
COVID brain.
Yeah, right.
Anyway. So, I mean, that guy is awesome. And I've listened to his stuff. But once you got his message, you're like, I got it.
Right.
I'm going to go on to somebody else, and I'm sure the same thing is people that listen to me, listen to my podcast or read my book. And they're like, Drew, got it. Make the important things important, starting with me. Got it. I'm moving on to, somebody else.
Yeah, sure. It's all just so dynamic and enjoyable if you'll let it be. It's hard. It's not easy. I'm wondering, what do you think? How do you approach parenting? Like, that's the value. Like, also, I'm selfish. So I'm just sitting over here thinking, what can I ask Drew about that I know I can learn something from? How do you approach parenting, and how do you think about that?
Well, I was fortunate enough to coach junior college football before I became a dad.
Yeah. So you had some parenting experience already.
So honestly, that's where I developed my parenting approach. And this is how I approach it. Hard, but fair. And everything that I do comes from a place of love. Nothing more, nothing less.
Need to learn fair a little bit, because I have a hard time figuring that one. I say a lot to my kids, which if someday, partly why I do this is someday I may die and they want to listen back and think, well, what did Dad think about stuff? I tell my kids a lot, life ain't fair. I can't make it fair. You can't have it fair. Get over that. So I'm curious. It's a thing you think about. What does it mean to you?
Showing grace.
All right.
That's what it means to me. Being fair. Nobody's perfect. Your kids definitely are
Maybe
perfect.
equitable is a way I should start saying it. Like, look, life is not equitable. It's not always you're going to get 2 cookies. They get 2 cookies.
Well, sure.
You know.
Sure. And I think we're talking about 2 different fares here.
Yeah.
You know, my fare is I'm going to treat you fairly. Again, knowing that no one is perfect, people are going to mess up, and acting accordingly.
Yeah. Oh, we got a camera going out over there. Well, anyways, I guess that's God saying,
We're done.
Yeah, you guys have got a lot of meat off the bone. Oh, that's what I want to ask you about. So what is your diet like? So just quickly here and kind of wrapping this thing up, we've covered a lot of really area. Talk about your diet. How do you think about food? Being a guy that makes bacon, sausage, ham, and has raised cattle and this kind of thing, I'm in the food business.
Sure.
What do you think about food?
Well, let me say this. The Tacos and Chocolate Diet, my debut book that came out in September of 2021, is not a diet book.
Yeah.
It's a lifestyle book.
Yeah, sure.
And I do eat a certain way, but I don't call it a diet. I call it a lifestyle, because I think diets come and go. We start a diet. I mean, think of all the diets that you've ever heard of.
Mm-hmm.
They're fads. A lifestyle is a choice. I want to eat this way, and this is what I do. I don't drink anymore. I stopped drinking probably about 4.5 years ago. Just said I'm done. That was huge. And the reason why I did that, to be honest with you, is I didn't really like how I was feeling through the midsection, and it was keeping me from being a good daddy.
Yeah.
You know, I'd be hungover on a Sunday after going to a house concert. Dad, let's do this. Dad, let's do that. And I was like, how about we just lay here and watch football all day?
Right.
Yeah. And I was like, this ain't cool. So I stopped drinking. I've really cut gluten out of my diet. I'm really conscious about that. I'll slip in a flour tortilla from time to time. I'm really careful with my dairy. I don't drink any milk. Now I take a calcium supplement, cheese, limit on the cheese. And again, Neil, for me, it's all about just looking good naked. I put that at the start of the book. That's my number one goal. I did go through a stretch where I didn't eat meat. I got out of that real quick. I lost a lot of weight. I couldn't sustain my calories.
Yeah.
It was kind of a nice reset, but then I got back into it. So I just, no gluten, no alcohol, limited dairy, and that's it. I don't eat fast food. I'll eat the Chick-fil-A Canes, but no McDonald's, no Taco Bell, none of that mess. Fruits and veggies, drink a lot of water. Oh, no soda. No soda is a big deal for me.
Yeah. Well, you look like a guy that's in shape and
well, thank you,
and is healthy. So anybody watching on YouTube will be able to verify that, you know, but you are in shape, healthy guy. And that's interesting to explore how you think about it.
Nutrition is huge. A little bit of working out, even if it's running 1 mile every single day or going to the gym a couple days a week or whatever it is. But the nutrition is the key. My trainer asked me recently, he goes, what are your goals with all this? And I said, I want my grandkids to look at me, my grandkids, and think, my granddad is a badass. He goes, oh, you want to be able to pick up your grandkids? And I said, Matt, that's not what I said.
Right.
I want them to look at me like, that guy's a stud.
Yeah.
So in order to do that, I have to work out. I have to eat.
You're thinking about future Drew a little bit. You're making some decisions for future Drew.
And I can't imagine I'm 48 now, you know, being 60 years old, 65 years old, and not being able to get up and walk around and go do stuff and not be able to, you know, throw the ball with my son or whatever it is. Man, that scares the heck out of me.
Yeah. My dad's pushing on 70, and I can't say he was a workout. He's just kind of this middle of the road guy, but his career was in farming and ranching. So he was outside doing physical stuff all the time. And he can go more than me. Like, I don't want to have to get out there and try to keep up with him. And his brothers are similar way. All the people that kind of worked in that business. We were talking about it. My generation, a couple of my cousins were just like, dude, I don't want to have to go out there and try to outwork dad. I mean, I'm soft. If I wasn't working out, I would be super, super, super soft because I just sit behind a desk or in a car or on a plane, you know,
movement
all
is
the time.
Key. Movement is key. And you don't have to be bench pressing or running a marathon. But if you're out and you're being active and you are moving your body, that is key. But it's also good for your mental health.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times we sit in these, you know, we're sitting in these real comfy chairs and you sit down here and you got that phone. You start to scroll. And then an hour later, you've been scrolling for an hour. Get your butt up and move.
Yeah.
It's key.
Stand up at your desk. Simple thing.
Yeah. Go fold that load of laundry. Whatever it is.
You bet.
Don't just sit there.
Everybody, thanks for listening. If you've listened this far, you spent an hour of your time with Drew and I. Drew, thanks for your time. Your time is valuable to you. So I just really appreciate you coming. Appreciate the listeners for being here. Get up and move.
Get up and move. I love it. Neil, I love what you're doing. I think it's fantastic. And I also want to say thank you for showing me a little grace, because last time we had this scheduled, I stood you up.
Oh, I've been there. We've all been there. It's accidental or just, life is happening. So no big deal. I'm glad we got back around to it.
Yeah, it was great. It was
Worked out good. Y'all come back next time. We'll be talking to somebody else that's going to be a great opportunity for you to hear something different, some other perspective to put under your hat.
Make the important things important. See ya.